Hello, everybody. This is Gary. It's 5:19 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States in Rochester, New York. It's September 4th, 2021, and this is just a quick update on how I'm doing with coping with my schizophrenia. Today's been a pretty quiet day. I'm actually feeling pretty calm, just a little bored. It's cooler outside because it's September, so it's not as hot and humid, which has been bothering me over the past few weeks because it was August and I don't have air conditioning. But it feels a lot more comfortable today. It's only about 77 degrees outside right now, and it's pretty breezy outside. Some clouds, not a lot of hot, humid weather. Um, as far as my schizophrenia is concerned, I always hear voices, but they're not as bad today as usual. Or I should say they're not as bad today, which is usual. It's only once in a while my voices get really intense and get louder for my own perception, and then they really start to bother me. But I'm doing pretty good today. Might have something to do with the fact that I took Klonopin earlier today. Didn't do much today. It's Saturday, not a lot to do around here. Um, Went downstairs, did my laundry, did some shopping, then came back from the store. Had to pick up some stuff for the house. Um, I guess I also wanted to talk about how I cope with voices when they do get really intense. Um, Assuming that I'm not also really delusional and psychotic with the voices, um, or suicidal, or feeling like I can't control my behavior. If I feel like I'm in danger to myself or somebody else, regardless of how intense the voices are, I'll go to the psychiatric emergency room for everybody's protection, including mine and other people's. Um, I don't think I'm actually capable of harming other people. That's why I go to the psychiatric emergency room. I don't go around harming other people. As long as I'm on my medications, I'm fine. I have gotten into fights when I went off my medication. Last time I went off my medication was probably, oh, I don't know, about uh, 5 years ago maybe, and it was a disaster. I ended up homeless, ended up in a flea bag hotel that literally had fleas. I got scabies. I had bed bugs, bites all over me. It was really a shitty place to live. And I went there because of my paranoia. Drove me from the apartment that I was in. I thought people were trying to kill me. I was living in Brockport, New York, and my paranoia made me leave Brockport, New York, a really nice apartment that I had. And I ended up in a hotel and or a motel, whatever the hell you want to call it, not just in New York. And it was infested with all kinds of parasites and roaches and mice and rats and shit. Um, and I was off my meds, and that didn't help at all. I'm surprised that I survived the period. Um, it was really, really bad. I lived in that hotel for about 8 months. It was finally closed down by the city of Rochester because it's such a shithole. I mean, drugs, prostitutes, violence, you name it. People fighting, knives, guns, drugs. It was actually a more dangerous situation than the one I thought I was leaving with my paranoia. Actually, my paranoia actually put me in a more physically really dangerous situation, and it only drove my paranoia and made it worse. Eventually, I worked my way back to where I am now, back on my meds, back into an apartment that I can afford, and so I would recommend people who are have schizophrenia or any psychosis not to go off their meds. I suppose that's true for anybody on psychiatric meds, whether they're psychotic or not. Don't go off your meds without your doctor's supervision. Um, and if you're psychotic, most doctors are not going to tell you to go off your psychiatric medications, your antipsychotics, or your antidepressants, or your anti-anxiety drugs, or anything else. But anyways, one of the ways I deal with my voices when I'm generally doing otherwise okay is I listen to music. Um, Listening to music is obviously with earphones is something that your ears can pick up on. You're listening to something, drown out the voices, and it should be music that you actually enjoy, just not random music that you just listen to. Um, Something in particular that you like. I personally like rock and roll from the 1980s. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I listen to music from the 70s and 80s. Um, Also, I listen to meditation music, not meditation in any religious sense. I'm a hardcore atheist. I don't believe in God, gods, or supernatural. I don't consider myself to be a spiritual person. So meditation is just a way of relaxing. I often do it before I go to sleep, and I actually haven't done it in a while. I just restarted it. But listening to music is one way to deal with voices when you're hearing them. Um, if your voices are telling you to do things, which mine don't, they just tell me that people are following me and spying on me. They don't actually tell me to do anything. They don't tell me to hurt other people. They don't tell me to hurt myself. They don't tell me to do anything violent or destructive. My voices were never like that. Um, I think if your voices do tell you to do things and you feel tempted to do those things, you shouldn't try to cope with it on your own. You need to get emergency help as soon as possible. Um, if your voices are telling you to do things and you don't think you're in danger of doing what they say, then I guess you could cope with it the same way I do, by listening to music, by meditation, um, beliefs or prayers or anything like that to cope with my hearing voices. Um, that would probably, for me, only make the problem even worse. And I have started riding my bike outside. It's been difficult to ride my bike during the hot weather because the sun really beats down and it's humid. And that, for some reason, I sweat very easily, much more than other people do, and I get dehydrated real fast. So it's hard for me to exercise intensely outside when it's hot and I'm very sweaty. I've gone to the emergency room for heat exhaustion, not heat stroke, but heat exhaustion and dehydration, and that's something I don't like doing if I can avoid it. So it's hard to exercise outside when the heat is and the humidity is too intense. But September and October is a good time for me to ride my bike and exercise and get outside. Sometimes just getting outside and listening to conversations of other people, not spying on them and not trying to actually listen to the details of their conversations, but just watching other people interact with each other. Let yourself know there are other people in the world besides you, and they have problems just like you do, and they're all about going about their daily lives like you are. Um, Another way to cope is to keep a daily schedule. Part of my daily schedule is making these videos. I have been making them every day, and I'm going to start trying to make at least one video every day, one live stream a day. Um, that's usually how I make my videos. I do a live stream, and then I just post it as a video later on. Um, but other ways to deal with hearing voices is to read, um, listen to calming music. Yeah, that's a good. Nat White just gave me a suggestion. Try walking in the afternoon, evening when it's cool. That's actually a good suggestion. That's another way of getting outside, letting yourself know that there's a world out there um, other than yourself and the room that you're in. I have made the mistake of spending too much time alone, and that's a dangerous thing when you have a psychotic mental illness. Spending too much time alone and hearing your voices over and over again when you're all by yourself. That's not a good idea. Um, you need to get outside, go for a walk when it's cool outside. Um, go for a walk. And when I was younger, I was jogging, um, but I'm not that young anymore. I'm 55, little overweight. Um, I tend to eat too much when I get depressed, and so my weight has gone up. Jogging also is very hard on the knees. Riding my bike or going for a walk is not that hard on the knees because you're not slamming your feet into the cement or into the ground constantly. And if I jog, um, it really makes my knees hurt really, really bad. And that lasts for 2 or 3 weeks and I can't even walk. So I stopped jogging a long time ago. But walking in the evening is a good suggestion. Um, Riding your bike, for me, anyways, riding the bike doesn't put any pressure on my knees, just like walking doesn't. Um, as I get older, it gets a little bit more difficult to ride a bike. Um, I tend to slow down. I remember when I was 18, I could ride a bike without holding onto the handlebars and still balance the bike perfectly. Now I can't do that. There's a lot of things I could do on my bike when I was 18 that I can't do at the age of 55. I mean, you have to be realistic about what you can do as you get older. But I know people who are physically disabled who still get outside and exercise. They go for walks, even if it's with crutches or a walker. Um, I live in a building where there's a lot of elderly people because it's a building for disabled people or people over the age of 62. So there's people with walkers, there's people with wheelchairs, there's people with motorized scooters. They still get outside, they still talk to people. Physically disabled people can get out and interact with other people. Certainly, people with schizophrenia or psychosis can get outside, especially if they're not physically disabled. I'm not physically disabled in any significant way. I'm blind in my left eye, but that's not really a disability. That's just something I lived with pretty much from the time I was born. I don't consider that a disability because I'm used to it. You really can't miss something you never had, and I never had vision in my left eye. Um, but coping with the voices is hard, especially when they're really intense. It's hard to try to ignore your voices, and maybe trying to ignore your voices in and of itself isn't totally possible. Um, but you can certainly distract yourself from them. Um, if they're always there like they are with me, uh, I can sort of put them in the background, but I can never fully ignore them. Um, but as far as my other symptoms of schizophrenia, my delusions aren't too bad today. I don't think people are out to get me or following me or anything like that. Um, I got a little frustrated today when I called the maintenance of my apartment. I think I might have the beginning of a bed bug infestation, which is a problem in this building. And I had to put in a maintenance request for pest control, and they haven't come up yet. And that's kind of frustrating because bed bugs are not something that's easy to get rid of. And the longer they wait to deal with the infestation, the more difficult it becomes to get rid of it. Um, I'm going to have to wash everything, my clothes, my blankets, my pillows. They're going to have to spray the apartment and nearby apartments to make sure the bed bugs don't spread. They've already sprayed my apartment earlier this year for bed bugs because my next door neighbor had them. I didn't actually have them, but they sprayed my apartment to prevent them from spreading. And I think they've already spread into my apartment. I've only seen a few, so it's not really an infestation yet, but I don't want it to become one. And that's the only thing that was really bothering me today. Um, because sometimes maintenance in my building can be very slow. Um, but as far as my other symptoms, my depression is not too bad. My anxiety is not too bad. Although I did cheat, I took Klonopin. Um, Klonopin is something that me and my psychiatrist are planning to end at the end of September for me because Klonopin can be addictive. I've been taking it already for about 2 months at a very low dose, but still, you don't want to take Klonopin for too long. The longer you stay on it and the higher the dose, the more physically addictive it becomes, the more psychologically dependent you become on it, and it can cause very bad withdrawal symptoms if you stopped it abruptly, including seizures. Another withdrawal. Bug spray. is something that my landlord, Nat White, just said, "Oh shoot, I had them. They were horrible. I poisoned myself with bug spray." My landlord doesn't allow the tenants to spray their own apartments with bug spray they buy at the store. They call him a professional exterminator to do the spraying for bed bugs. I can't go to Walmart and buy a bunch of bug spray and then spray my own apartment. It's just the landlord mentioned it's dangerous, and in New York State, it's illegal to spray your own apartments. Because I live in a federally subsidized building, it's against federal law for the tenants to spray their own apartments with chemicals. Only a professional uh, exterminator can spray the apartment. Most I can do is report the bed bugs to maintenance, and they will come in with an exterminator and exterminate the bed bugs themselves through the exterminator. But and bed bugs are very anxiety provoking, which I suppose doesn't help the schizophrenia any. Uh, I just hate insects in general. I hate roaches. I hate bed bugs. There are certain insects that don't bother me all that much. I'm not bothered by ladybugs or butterflies or anything like that. But the disgusting kind of bugs, bed bugs, roaches, not too much bothered by spiders, but anything that potentially is a parasite or causes disease, those kind of insects really disgust me. And I've had roaches in this apartment before. I've even seen a few mice. I'm not trying to say that this is a bad apartment or the building is filthy, because it's not. The maintenance is pretty well kept up for the building. It's just that there are 550 apartments in two separate towers that are 22 stories high, and it's very easy for insects if they start in one apartment and spread to the next. That doesn't mean the building itself is filthy or poorly maintained. They actually do a pretty good job at maintaining the building. They're repairing the exterior of the building right now. They're doing brickwork and masonry work on the outside of the building to improve broken bricks and other aspects of the building that need repairs on the outside. They're trying to improve the outward appearance of the building, and they do a pretty good job at fixing the pipes if there's a water leak or something like that. The fire alarm system works well. We had a fire a few months ago after I moved in, and somebody died in one of the upper floors. I think it was the 10th floor. I'm on the fourth floor, and the fire department had to use a lot of water to put out the fire. And unfortunately, the person in the apartment died. I don't remember what the cause of the fire was. I don't think it was from smoking cigarettes, because we are allowed to smoke cigarettes in our apartment, which I'm still trying to quit. I, um, but anyways, the fire alarm system worked the way it was supposed to. There was lot of water damage on the 10th floor, but it didn't affect my apartment too much. But this apartment's been pretty good to live in. I like it a lot better than the last apartment, and that affects my schizophrenia in a good way because I have more room to breathe. This apartment is much larger than the other apartment I had, less claustrophobic, produces less anxiety. I feel like I have more room to breathe, which is good for my mental health. Um, and it's just generally a better place to be. One of the things about being mentally ill is if you have an unhealthy environment, like when I was staying at that hotel, that's only going to make your mental health problems worse. If you don't like the place that you're living in, or if you're homeless, that is not going to help your mental illness at all. Um, so it's important for people who are mentally ill to have a safe place to live, whether they're living on their own, in a group home, in a supervised apartment program, um, a staff facility of some kind. Um, any place that a mentally ill person can feel safe is usually better for their mental health. And I feel pretty safe where I live. Uh, can't have too many complaints. Um, I saw the doctor on, well, yesterday actually. I went to them because I was concerned. They found out that I have a parasite living in my intestines. They don't know what it is. They couldn't identify it, so they sent it to a lab. It looked like a white, fleshy slug. It was in a stool sample I gave them, and they sent it to a lab to identify what the hell it was because they didn't know what it was. I don't know what it was. But the lab on Monday will take a look at it, and then they'll tell the doctor the best way to treat it. It's just a disgusting feeling knowing that I have something living inside of me that's a parasite that I don't want living inside of me. But, take it one day at a time, see what happens. But that's all for now. Like, comment, share, subscribe, press the like button.